And as we sit nice and tall with the eyes closed, and just allowing our awareness to be unencumbered, to not be too focused on any one thing. Instead, allow it to be vast and expansive, like the space between and beyond the stars. Allow your awareness to expand. And notice how in that expansion there is a sense of peace. There is a sense of stillness. There is a sense of silence. There's a soft joy, a sense of okayness. Perhaps there's curiosity, relief, and for some there may even be surrender, a willingness to go even further. As you sit here with the eyes closed, just notice the spaciousness within, around and throughout, and all the beauty that entails. And then gently fluttering the eyes open. We've been in retreat this weekend exploring silence. And when I think of silence, I'm sometimes reminded of prayer. And on the face of it, they might seem like opposites. Prayer is something you speak. Mantra is something you sing. Mantra is a prayer, form of prayer. But prayer is only something that you speak if the prayer is not coming from the heart, if it's coming from the head. If the prayer or the mantra is coming from the heart, then it's not noise. It's a feeling of expansiveness. How many of you have ever gone into an evangelical type of a church, or a church where you just see people surrendering into prayer? Hands? Yeah. And from the outside, looking in, it might seem like there's a lot going on there. A lot of busyness, a lot of something. But then if you look a little closer, what you'll see is that there's a stillness and a relief and an acceptance and a silence that in some traditions is expressed as wailing. In other traditions is expressed as crying. In other traditions is expressed as laughter. In other traditions is expressed as just raising up of the arms, Haribo. The essence of the surrender, no matter what the tradition is that we're talking about, through prayer, through mantra, through uplifted intention, to me, that is a form of silence. To bring that to another place is to say that when we're praying, when we're intending, when we're with our heart and not our head, then we're looking out for something other than what the ego wants. We're not as concerned with what we're going to get or lose. We're not as concerned with what we're going to receive, acquire, or have to give away or give up. Instead, for lack of a better word, the concern is connection. It's like, how can I serve you? How can I more fully come into relationship? How can I more fully be present? How can I more fully express the inherent goodness, the peace, the love, the joy? Less fear, more love. Less dark, more light. Less harm, and more healing. To me, that's another type of silence. Because that's not possible without it. It's not possible to be more concerned with serving others if you're not somehow silent. If your ego's going a bit batty, then what you're concerned with is you. You're not concerned with serving the other person. If your words state, I'm concerned with serving you, but your mind is still going batty with the ego, then the service is ego-based, not heart-based. Does that make sense? So there has to be a degree of silence within, a degree of peace, a degree of stillness, so that the service can be selfless. So the service can be an offering that is not so self-invested. So the prayer can be more complete and not as conditional, so that the experience can be more free and not as constrained. Does that make sense? Yeah? There's a beautiful theory of an expanding universe. They said there was a point in time where everything in the universe was like a little ball, a big ball of energy, a little ball. And that this power is packed. And then something happened. Who knows what? They call it the Big Bang Theory. But it put things in motion, and things started spiraling. And that spiral got bigger and bigger and bigger, and spread out more and more and more, until the density of what was gave way to the spaciousness of what is. Now we look at our life and we say, we're all a little dense. We're all a little tightly wound. We're all that power that's kind of constricted. And the place where it's constricted is within the ego. And then we adopt a practice of silence, even 2 minutes a day. And something happens. And it sets the spiral in motion. And suddenly we become less and less dense, more and more expansive. And where there was constriction and constraint and density, there's now freedom. There's freedom. There's freedom to see, freedom to hear, freedom to smell, taste, touch, experience, freedom to be in a way that was absent before, when everything was being held in a tight little ball, a tight little bundle of tension. They say the individual who's driving a car and about to get into an accident sees the accident coming in the rearview mirror and they tense. And that over time, what they found is that individuals who knew they were going to be rear-ended and tensed, their injuries were far worse than the ones who didn't see it coming. Because the ones who didn't see it coming remained kind of loose and open and expansive, and their body was more able to move with the impact versus become rigid and harmed as a result of the impact. When we don't practice silence, we're looking in our rearview mirror waiting for the next impact. And we're prepared well ahead of time, like we talked about this morning. You see so-and-so, walking up to you on the street, and you're like, oh, here goes. Okay, if they say this, I'm going to say this. If they say that, I'm going to say that. If they do this, I'm going to do this. and you've got 15,000 stories already going on in your head, that person has no chance whatsoever of being anything other than what you make them out to be. And that's so limiting and so constricting. But if you have a practice of silence, even 2 minutes a day, then maybe, just maybe, there'll come a point in time where you see that person and you don't have an expectation. That you're a little less dense. And as a result of that, they can be too. And then instead of them kind of feeding off of your energy and becoming defensive, and you becoming defensive to their defensiveness, and their defensiveness to your defensiveness, and escalation, they just say hi, and you just say hey, and then you continue on. And there's a relief. There's a relief there. Because you weren't looking in the rearview mirror, waiting for the next bomb drop, waiting for the next. Same old that you can be prepared to deal with. There's two kinds of listening, at least, maybe more. One is absent, and the other is conscious. Absent listening is when someone's talking and all you see is their mouth moving. You have no idea what they're saying, really, even if you're hearing their words. You're too busy inside of your mind placing definition on the words that they're saying to you. And then there's conscious listening, where you're listening to the words that are being said, really taking in the language, the body language, your understanding of what's being shared, and then asking for validation of your understanding. This is what I heard you say. Is that accurate, or have I missed something? Conscious listening is not possible without silence. Only empty listening is possible without silence. If we want to be conscious listeners, if we want to be able to really be present for the people that we love and care about, for the people in our community, for the needs of the world, then we need to be silent more than less. We need to be silent and to show up in a way that's really hearing, that's really seeing, that's really understanding. And not in a way that is expecting, preferring, harming, assuming. I always find it so funny. Somebody can say hello, and we'll be like, what do they mean by that? Another person says hello, and we're like, oh, they're so nice. Another person says hello, same tone all three times. Man, they're just so blah, 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 blah. One word said the same exact way. And we can feel threatened, relieved, or confused. And all because we're not listening, because there's not enough silence inside of us to allow the listening. Always ask, this is what I heard. Did I hear correctly, or have I missed something? Don't be afraid to take the responsibility of that. Because you're only human, and so am I. And it's so empowering when we don't make assumptions about what other people mean. It gives them an opportunity to be heard. It gives them an opportunity to adjust, adapt, and accommodate to what we think we heard. It gives them an opportunity to refine their expression of themselves. It gives them an opportunity to be compassionate. it gives us all an opportunity to be compassionate, to ask for clarity. Not like, what do you mean by that? Yeah. But this is what I heard. Is that accurate, or have I missed something? Could you help me out? And you know they will, because the human ego tendency is to lash out. The human heart tendency is to reach out. So the moment that you ask, you will receive. Because that's the human heart's tendency. Then the ego says, but I didn't want to quite receive it that way. I had something else in mind. And then you need to recognize that the way you will receive it may not be the way you expect it. And just keep your heart open to the possibilities of it. But in order to be open to the possibility of it, what do you have to have? Silence. A little bit on the inside. A little bit of silence, a little bit of space. A little bit. You don't have to be all in. You know, like Swami Nirmalananda. He took a vow of silence for 12 years. Could you imagine? 12 years. His devotees got really upset about this and went to him and said, please don't be silent for 12 years. We won't learn anything. You have to talk to us. You have to make an exception. And so he did. He said, once a month for 15 minutes, I'll speak. You're either here or you're not. Be here once a month, 15 minutes. Once a month for 15 minutes. That's what he did. He gave satsang and then he went back to silence. And they all showed up because they knew. You know, they knew that there was something powerful there for them to experience. But you don't have to take 12 years of silence. You can take 1.2 minutes. Or 12 minutes. Or 12 hours. 12 days. So silence is like a prayer. Silence is like a mantra. Silence is spaciousness. Silence is a form of stillness. Silence is empowerment. Silence is freedom. Silence is free of assumption. Silence is free of constriction and unnecessary tension. Silence is expression. Expression of your true self. Because what's the number one reason why you don't express yourself? Because you're too busy being who you think other people think you should be. And you find out a lot in this life that we show up in ways that we would not show up if we were being true to who we are rather than who we think other people think we should be. Excuse me for this cough. It is better than it was yesterday. When you have a practice of silence, you become more comfortable with yourself. Just become more comfortable with who you are. Start to recognize that you don't have to react so much. And then when someone invites you to get on the bandwagon of the most recent juicy gossip, you're like, yeah, no, thank you. That's too harmful. That's not a good investment of my energy. When someone invites you to get involved in an argument, you say, yeah, it's not necessary. So I'm going to use my energy elsewhere. And if it is necessary for you to get involved, then your involvement will tend to be different. Because silence requires that. If you have an ongoing practice of silence, when you do become involved in conflict, the conflict is different. It's not me against you, and I'm going to show you. It's resolution. It's contemplative resolution. It's how do we get to the resolution? It's us facing a problem, not us facing off each other. And when you think about it, that's all conflict ever really is. Conflict is really not me against you. It's us against a problem. And the problem could be the perception that's different between us. The problem could be resources. The problem could be behavior. If we spent more time approaching the problem rather than seeing each other as the enemy, we would find a lot more resolution in this life. But in order to do so, we need to have moments of silence rather than mind chatter. The mind chatter will keep us stuck in outdated patterns of behavior. They won't open us up to the possibility of resolution. We're in a relationship. We say, you always do this, you never do that. You always are this way, you're never that way. And that's just a repetitive record. It's like, when for those of you who are my age, when we used to have LPs, I guess you do today too, right? Didn't they make a comeback recently or something? You put it on the record player, and you have a skip in the record. And it would just repeat that little part over and over and over again. You never do that. You never do that. You never do that. You never do that. You always do that. You always do that. You always do. It's just a skip in the record. There's no validity to it whatsoever. Because nobody ever always does something, and nobody never does something. It's not real. Given circumstances and situations, anything is possible. Change is always happening. We're always updating ourselves, adapting, adjusting, and accommodating. So why not hold a space of silence, hold a space of peace, and hold a space of conscious communication that actually allows that allows the expression to be more open, more expansive, rather than keeping people stuck on the skip in the record. Do you like to be held to the skip in the record? Everybody in here has been told at some point or another that they always do something wrong. Right? Show of hands. Did you like it? No. Would you have appreciated the opportunity to either change or express a truer part of yourself versus a limited idea that someone had about you? Yeah. Absolutely. But in order for the one person to allow the space necessary for that expression, and for you to understand that you have the ability to express that, there has to be silence. There's got to be some silence, some stillness within, so that you even have an idea of who you really are. So that you don't go on believing that you are these stories that other people tell you you are. And we just thought it was being quiet. Silence is just being quiet. We'll just be quiet. It's not just being quiet. We can be very quiet and still have a lot going on. We can look like we're meditating and be fighting the greatest battle of our life. We can give someone the silent treatment, and it's the most harmful, deadly act in the world. We can be quiet. Doesn't mean we're being peacefully silent, meaningfully silent, expansively silent. So we come to a place this weekend for the retreat attendees where you're preparing to head back home. And you are now released from your silence. You're released. For some of you, I can already see on your face that you don't really want to be. Maintain a practice, a minimum of 2 minutes a day, and then increase that every day until you reach your age. So for however old you are, let that be the number of minutes at a minimum that you practice silence every day. But build up to it. You don't have to do it all at once. For those of you who are here just today, coming into class today, having this conversation, you're invited to enter into silence. Enter into the practice of silence every day. Start with 2 minutes. Build from there till you reach your age. And I can already see from the expression of some faces, how am I ever going to do that? You'll never know until you try. You'll never know. The beauty of this yoga, the beauty of these practices, is that they're experiential. You have to take part in them in order to understand their potency. You don't know the coldness of the river until you go in it. You just don't know. And you don't know how that chill turns to warmth until you experience it. You don't know the power of silence until you take it. Dedicate yourself to it. There are times in this world where we have to be bold, where we need to be loud, where we need to make a statement, perhaps. And I've gone in my life through many different transformations. Goodness, you would think I'd be so tired by now. Ed used to say, we live about 7 years in 1 year. And I'd say, that's all. There was a time, a few, in my life where I was an activist. I'm still an activist, and I will always be an activist because that's my heart. But there were different types of activism that I took part in. And when I was younger, in my teens and in my 20s, I was a very loud activist. I was always telling you what's wrong with you. Told everybody what's wrong with the world, what they all needed to do. A lot of running around, a lot of yelling, a lot of pointing fingers. Mind you, I'd like to believe that I did it somewhat compassionately, but I also know that I didn't. There's a lot of energy. And it was kind of like running down a hallway that just kept getting longer. Or being that little super ball that bounces off the walls and ceilings, and once it starts, it doesn't stop. You ever wonder how tired that little super ball must be? You know? How much energy is expended. And nothing was really, or very little, was really accomplished. No one ever became a vegetarian because I yelled at them. No one ever stopped wearing fur because I yelled at them. No one ever stopped bullying because I put them down about bullying. No one ever cleaned up their act because I told them how much their act needed to be cleaned up. No, they got more rigid in their determination. You know when things started to change? And I remember this one thing specifically. So I used to dye my hair, all kinds of colors. Black blue, black purple, black black, black red. I used to dye my hair, all kinds of amazing colors. And I started going gray at a really young age. So I was probably like 14 It was right when the first Freddy Krueger movie came out. You know what I'm saying?
I had to leave that film.
But you know the lead actress in the film, right? Totally. So this girl, she gets so scared. Have you all watched, like, the Freddy Krueger? How many of you have? Honestly. Okay, a couple of you. So you all remember in the first movie, the girl who played the lead character, she got so afraid that her brown hair got this gray streak. Do you remember that? Okay. Don't go watch the movie just to find out. It's far too violent. But she did. She got this, like, her dark, dark brown hair, and she got this gray streak. Actually, it would have been on this side. And I remember walking out of that movie theater and thinking, that's a really great look. And within a year, it happened naturally. And I had this gray streak, which I was fine with, usually. But when I wasn't fine, I dyed it. And then I just dyed it all. And I dyed my hair over and over and over again. And then as soon as I started dyeing my hair, girls started putting gray streaks in their hair on purpose. Right? But I really took to the dyeing. And I thought that dyeing my hair was, you know, an expression of my true self. It's who I really am. So years go by, and sometime in my 40s, I think my mid-40s, I stopped dyeing my hair. And initially, I got lots of different kinds of comments. Aren't you afraid you're going to look older? I am older. Aren't you afraid people won't find you attractive anymore? I don't find me attractive now. What do I care about what other people think? All kinds of, like, reactions and responses going on, you know. And then one day, it was almost all the way grown out. And I was getting ready to go have kind of like the final cut, which would have taken the remainder of the chocolate cherry color by, what company is that? Claire, L'Oreal, yeah. And this woman walked up to me and she said, "Oh my God, your gray is so beautiful. I wish I had the nerve to grow mine out." And I said, "Well, why don't you just do it?" She said, "Oh, I couldn't. People would think I was old. My husband wouldn't look at me the same way. I don't know what I look like with gray hair." So the conversation ended, and I go off, and I have that last bit cut off. And I got really short, too. I went really short, like almost as short as Sam. Really short. And about 6 months later, I saw that woman. She grew her hair out. She stopped dyeing it. And I thought to myself in that moment, wow. Because she said, "I grew this out because you seemed so at ease growing yours out that you inspired me to do the same." And I thought I didn't have to scream, kick, yell, punch, bite, insult, clench. None of that. All I had to do was just be me. But in order to have some semblance of the potential of what that could be, I had to be quiet. I had to be silent. And then I had to accept what came to me in that silence. My hope for each and every person here today, including myself, is that we have enough courage and bravery to dive into the silence so that we can see the power of our own being, of our own presence. And it might be surprising to some of you, but I used to be a pretty reactive person. I'd like to think that I'm less reactive. I don't know. It depends on the day, I guess. But the other thing that I found about silence is that when I need to make a point, the silence actually supports me in making my point more profoundly and more straightforwardly, because I'm not really worried about if people agree with me or not. I understand that I see things a certain way and that people see things a certain way, and that this is my opinion. And you don't have to have the same opinion as I do. And we can talk about it. And we can have the conversation. And I can stay true to my ethic, and you can stay true to your ethic, and it doesn't make either one of us wrong. But in allowing someone else to remain true to what they think or what they feel is their ethic, and me to what I think or what I feel is my ethic, then maybe we can get to the crux of a certain kind of issue called harm. And we can talk about harm. Instead of talking about what makes you wrong and me right, me wrong and you right, we can talk about how we can both be less harmful. And that's a real poignant conversation in today's world. But I guarantee you that if you sit there and yell at people and tell them how horribly no good they are, they're not going to change their harmful ways. They're only going to clench more and constrict more and be more determined to prove you wrong. And we thought silence was just being quiet. Silence is the power that's going to bring our world around to a place of greater peace. Silence is a power that's going to bring your life around to a place of greater peace, greater harmony. And silence is the power that's going to bring us to a greater connection with one another. With one another, with the world, the planet, all of the beings that inhabit it, and with the divine, with the source. So I'd like to open this to the retreat attendees and ask you if you have reflections that you would like to share of your experience of silence this weekend. And you can keep them brief if you like, and you can also pass if you like. We'll start with Grace, because she's looking at me.
I'm 33 weeks pregnant, and I'm due December 27th. And I didn't realize just like how busy in my day-to-day life it has been, and the opportunity to be quiet for a full day and to just be like super in tune with my baby was really powerful. Yeah, just like I wasn't expecting that to be the outcome, but it was really, really awesome.
I'm so happy for you.
Yeah, it made me feel really excited and also a little terrified about giving birth. But mostly really good. So yeah, I'm really grateful for that opportunity.
Now, I'm sure your mom has shared with you that right after labor, as soon as that baby is born, you forget everything. It's true. It really is. It's true. That moment that the baby is born is the greatest silence you will ever experience. And I'm so happy for you. So happy for you. Yeah, absolutely. How about you, Patricia?
When I wrote my silence yesterday at Kirtan, I said I'm so happy and grateful, and I feel so happy and grateful, just overwhelming, just gratitude.
Yeah. I'm so grateful for you to be here. Absolutely.
It's good to be here. I know I haven't heard a peep out of any of you. Still good to be here.
Now you're finally going to hear each other's voices. Yeah.
I think it feels like the start, just kind of starting to experience those benefits of silence and a practice that I can maintain.
Wonderful. Wonderful. Cal?
I know I spoke to you about it before you went to times I've been on the verge of tears, just like healing, loving tears, and only doing it for this period of time is just kind of, at least for me, it's like giving me a tease, kind of, because I do want to go further. 3 days, 5 days, maybe even 10 days, but I noticed that this silence really neutralizes the ego. Almost all my life, I've struggled with comparing my insides to other people's outsides, and the silence just kind of like neutralizes that. It's just like, we're all pretty much on the same playing field. And even though, I wasn't talking with people, I still felt a very strong connection, a very strong bond. I guess that's about it. I just hope that you have a long walk.
We will. We're working it out as far as the dates. Yeah, absolutely. Thank you.
This was the start of a metamorphosis, I believe, and the start of healing. That was much needed.
Very good.
I managed to make myself very busy in my life, so I think it's nice to do something like this from time to time, and just like to thank everybody who participated, because we can put the same out every year. Thank you.
Absolutely. So good to have you here. So good to have you here.
Just gratitude.
Wonderful.
Because I found the community of silence as well. I wasn't expecting that.
Say a little bit louder.
The community of silence, just being together in silence is very different.
It's when you come together, yeah, it's a beautiful experience. Wonderful. Thank you for sharing. Do we get all the retreat attendees? Laura.
A lot. I found that physically being still was not something I expected. It was the silence that I came for, and it was much more than that. I'm a mother of 2 young kids, and so I'm always moving and chasing. And I'll definitely be taking this home and creating more silence in our life. And I also have a son who has no problem sitting in silence. And I find that we have so much. My husband and I have been like, go read a book, go play a game, go do something. And I'm not going to do that anymore. I don't want to take that natural silence from him that he has. So I'm taking that a lot. I've gotten a lot out of it. So I'm on the verge of tears right now. It's been beautiful. It's been a big experience.
That's a beautiful insight. It's a beautiful insight. Because we do get so uncomfortable when other people are silent. You're like, say something so I know what to do. Do something so I know what to say. To be able to sit with someone else's silence and stillness, powerful. And as a parent, oh, what a beautiful gift to give your child. What a beautiful gift to just let him be. Yeah. Thank you for sharing. Yeah. Laura, do you want to say anything? No. Okay. Oh, and what our visitors today like to share? Miss Aslan.
I've really been interested in doing a silent day or anything, but I do find at work, when I'm working with other people, I tend to just be silent a lot of times, and I notice sometimes that makes people
Yeah.
continue.
So silence is natural. It comes to you in some moments naturally.
Yeah, other moments not. But, yeah.
Yeah, absolutely.
It's nice to see how everyone reflected from the reading.
And in those moments where the silence comes to you naturally, instead of saying, "Oh no, it's you," try, "Hello, old friend. Let's sit together for a little while. What do you have to teach me today?" Yeah. Kathy, would you like to say anything today?
I love silence
Mm.
as much as possible. Whenever I can get it. Everybody thinks there's something. What's the matter? What's wrong? Why are you so quiet? What's wrong? And I keep thinking the old adage years ago. I used to always hear silence is golden. Silence is golden. And so I come home and just go about doing things in peace and quiet. And my husband comes in, turns the TV on, and leaves the room. Background noise. Background noise? But you went outside. I love the peace and quiet. I love the silence. So
Yeah.
we have a great schedule. He's gone before I get up in the mornings. And then when I get up, I have that hour or two to myself. It's nice and quiet.
That old saying, silence is golden. I don't know that the original author of that statement meant this, but in the spiritual realm, gold is associated with alchemy. And alchemy is the process of involution. It's the process of becoming pure. It's the process of shedding that which isn't true. So silence is golden indicates that silence is necessary in that alchemical process of spiritual awakening in order for us to be golden. Yeah, in order for our golden nature to come forward. It's beautiful. Yeah. Would you like to share anything today?
When I was teaching a couple weeks ago, I shared with you that I 10 chattery 10-year-olds that come into class twice a week at a local elementary school. And I started that particular day and how it affected the kids. It was a good opportunity for them.
Excuse me, yeah.
Without starting the class saying we're going to be in silence today, which I've done before,
Mm-hmm.
to just be sitting there
Yeah.
in a quiet contemplation state with my eyes closed, and they entered the class and they halted. What's going on? And I did not move. I just stayed in silence. And it was really wonderful to see how the silence spread
Mm.
and allowed them to feel a different state and explore that for themselves. Because they stayed silent. They were very respectful. And it's amazing what silence can do in all different areas and different.
The silence is contagious.
It was contagious.
Yeah.
It was one of the quietest thing in this year. There was something here.
I've worked with special needs and at-risk youth for years. And the one thing that I have always heard from the child is, my parent, my mother, my father, my caseworker, they all said I can't be quiet. And now because they were told that, they believe it's true. And yet, I don't know that I've ever actually encountered a child who couldn't be quiet. Like, peacefully quiet.
Maybe they were given the opportunity.
Right.
And also the example.
Yeah. And because children learn by doing what they see, that's the number one way that a child learns is from watching their parent, watching the people around them, how they behave, how they interact. So if you sit down and be quiet, eventually the child will sit down and be quiet too. Initially they may run circles around you, you know. Initially they may. But eventually they won't. It's all just a matter of, you know, what is it that we're going to teach them? We use those words again. You're always running around. You're never quiet and still. Wow. What a harmful thing to say to a developing mind, to a little kid who, by the way, is supposed to run around a little crazy. Yeah. They've got all that amazing energy that many of us wish we had, right? Yeah. Yeah. Silence is contagious.
It really is.
Would you like to share today?
When people were talking, this is happening to me more and more as I get older. I realized that the people who were challenges to me, like for instance my sister who never shut up, when I was growing up, really gave me such gifts.
Yeah. Yeah. When we look at something like that, first of all, I'm so happy you said that. Thank you so much for bringing that forward. Because when we lose patience with other people, it's really fear. It's something within us. It's something about our own fear, our own impatience with ourselves. And then we look at them and we say, you're imposing, you know, you're inconveniencing me somehow. And the reality is, all they're showing us is where we need to do our work. The work of conscious listening. The work of honesty. I had a friend one time, she got me this little refrigerator magnet. It said, good friends are cheaper than therapy. And that was basically our relationship. Was that she would have something going on and we would sit and talk for hours about it. And I was never able to be honest with her if I didn't want to listen anymore, or if I needed a break, or if I needed to talk about something. I was never able in that relationship, at least early on, to say, I really need to change the subject now, or I really need a moment of quiet now. What she showed me was where I needed to do my own work. She showed me that I needed to find my voice, and that I needed to find a compassionate voice, not a voice that said, you talk too much, will you please? But a compassionate voice that said, I understand you have a need to express. Right now, I have a need to just be quiet. So can we just take a moment? And so while at one point in my life, I was potentially upset with her about that, now I'm grateful. Because every single person we encounter is a few things. They're showing us, they're teaching us what it is that we need to learn and become skillful at. And the second thing is that they're the God approaching us and asking us for a relationship. Not a relationship of ignorance, but a relationship of understanding, a relationship of wisdom, a relationship of knowing, an opportunity to grow and change. We're changing anyway, you know. So I'm so glad. Thank you for saying that. And thank you for recognizing it too, you know. That's powerful. That's very powerful. Lori?
I just would also share my gratitude for Kulakama Foundation and you.
I'm very grateful to be here. Coughing off. If you had asked me when I was in my teens where I would be when I was 56, I would have said, I don't know, I don't see myself at the age of 56. Or I'd be like some, burned out rock star. Or a lawyer, human rights activist, thrown in jail more times than not for civil disobedience. And through this process of being alive, what I just continually come to find is the importance of just being open. And where you are meant to be is exactly where you are. And what you are meant to experience and to open to is right in front of you. But we're often looking left when we should be looking right. So have a broader peripheral view of your life and your possibilities. I'm so grateful to be here. To literally just be here. To be alive. I'm grateful for that, I don't want to go too much longer. I want everybody to have a chance to say, we're doing good on time. Okay. But there was a point, some of you have heard this before, in my life where I didn't see myself beyond the age of maybe 30. Literally. No vision whatsoever. 30, 36. No view at all of any life beyond that age. And I would have said that was perhaps a premonition of dying, that I didn't see it. I had no interest, no intention, no idea. Some people, they're going to be like married, have kids, have a career, have this, have that. Nope, none of it. And for years, I walked around thinking there was something wrong, that I didn't have a view, or that I was seeing that I wouldn't be here now. And it wasn't until a little bit later, when I started putting the pieces of the puzzle together, that I recognized what that actually meant. And that was that I was going to die. And without sounding melodramatic, be reborn again. A few times. The first of which was around the age of 30. The second, and potentially more profound, was at the age of 36. And then it's just nonstop from there. So if I tried to measure myself when I was in my teens, my 20s, and even my early 30s, where I would be today in comparison to where I was then, I had nothing to measure it. I had no way to see it. So of course I couldn't imagine it. Because if you would have told me when I was 27 that at the age of 56 I would be a Swamini, I would have been like, what? Right? So even if you don't have a current vision, don't look at that as a limitation. Just understand that whatever is necessary for you to be able to see where you will be is still a work in process. And be open to all of it, because it will reveal itself eventually to you. It will. It has no choice. Yeah. I think we come to Ilona.
Yeah, I like silence and stillness. And I'm trying to find that within chaos. But that is the greatest challenge at this moment. To find the stillness that I have when I'm alone and when I am facing opposite.
Yeah.
And then I see
Yeah. It's hard. It's definitely challenging, but one thing that might be helpful is to remember that in every hurricane, it's not just a storm. There's also an eye. There's a center of the storm where everything is completely peaceful. And in any of our given lives, we are, or we have the potential to be, the eye of the storm. Everything around us is chaotic, but we don't have to get caught up in that. We don't have to. It's not necessary. And we don't have to be reactive to it. I remember in my early days of learning about meditation, a teacher said something along the lines of, whenever there's a jerk in the body, like a jolt in the body, it's a disturbance of prana. They were quoting the Hatha Yoga Pradipika, which is a technical manual of the practices. And I sat with that for a while because it really intrigued me, because I jolted a lot. I have a background of significant trauma, so at night I would jolt awake. In the day, PTSD would cause jolting. And I really wanted to understand and like how to bring that back to a place of balance and harmony, less jolting. So I came up with this thought, and I don't know, it was influenced from someplace, but I don't remember where. And thinking about Om, the sound vibration Om, and how, earlier we started off by talking about how this universe started off as a compact energy. That compact energy is Om. There's nothing in existence that is not Om. Nothing. Whether it's the muffler on the really loud motorcycle, or the person's voice yelling at you, or the backfire, or the flutter of butterfly wings, it kind of came from that. So what I started doing was meditating on Om. And when things around me were getting chaotic and I was feeling triggered, PTSD-wise, I would start listening for Om. And Om is really present in a storm. Just listen to the wind. The essence of that windy sound is Om. And I don't know, for me, that brought me a great comfort. And then when I would hear a large noise, I wouldn't jolt so much. And when things around me were moving really chaotically, I wouldn't get as caught up so much. I would just sit and I would concentrate on Om. And over time, that taught me that I actually don't need to react anywhere near as much as I do. Still working on it. But at least that understanding is there, that I can look for something else. I don't have to look and say, well, that's bad. That's inconvenient. That's horrible. Instead, I can look and I can recognize that there's a lot of things going on. But what's happening within me is my own empowerment. So I'll concentrate on Om. I'll recognize everything is as it is for purposes and reasons beyond my understanding. And I will use my energy to be of service as best I can, to be peaceful as best I can, to be silent and unassuming as best I can, to be as best I can, and to allow others to have the struggle they're meant to have. Because when you're conflicted with another person, we oftentimes, especially in relationship, like close relationship, we want that person to change for us. But they can't. They can't change for us because that's not their job. Their job is to go through what they're going through so that they can grow, or not, to whatever capacity they're willing to. In the Bhagavad Gita, it says very clearly, it's better to do your own work and fail miserably than to do the work of another and succeed. So if your counterpart in this life changes for you, they're doing your work, not their own. They have to change for themselves. And there's nothing we can say or do, really, to cause that to happen. All we can do is support our own inner peace. Does that make sense? And in doing so, hopefully we're also supporting theirs.
Yesterday, I was able to go babysit my son's dog from 3:30 in the afternoon to like 2 in the morning. It was wonderful. It was just Odin and I, and that was it. My husband stopped by for a few hours, but all day just me and Odin. And my husband, my son got home, he's like, "Mom, I feel so bad. I feel like I should pay you." I was like, "No, I feel like I should pay you." I would pay somebody just to leave me alone. Like, really?
Come by anytime.
It was true. I was like, Odin's a great little dog, and we just were hanging out, and so it was a great thing. So, yeah, and most of it's spent in silence.
Wonderful, wonderful. Chantal, take lunch with you. So much love to you. I'll see you again soon. Thank you for sharing that. Silence is such a commodity, isn't it? It's precious. It's so precious. And it's right within. It's right within us. We say, oh, someone's talking, I can't be silent. Not true. You can. But it takes effort. It really does. It's not easy. Because inside of us, there's the ego battling itself. You know, the healthy ego and the unhealthy ego. And Spirit's just kind of hanging out going, okay, whenever you're ready, let me know. Because Spirit doesn't have to battle. It's just automatically what it is. But the ego battles so much. So much. Yeah. Thank you for sharing that.
I think, as usual, you've given me a lot to think about this week and think about today. And I've always been a quiet person, a silent person, and my kids are the same way. And I think I've always thought, what is wrong with us? Like, we're just all really quiet people. When we're together, we have a good time. But I always feel like I'd rather listen more than talk. And I enjoy silence. I love silence. And you were talking about your kids, and like sometimes we're just really quiet in the car. Like I might take one of my kids somewhere, and I've learned to just be quiet with them. At first, I thought it was weird, like it was a odd thing, but sometimes I just enjoy it. Just quiet. We don't have anything to share with each other. It's just that we enjoy just being quiet.
Inevitably, for every one of us, there'll come a time where we would give anything to have those moments of quiet again. So enjoy them. Enjoy them now. Yeah. Don't look for them to be something else. Absolutely. And how beautiful. I don't know that there's a greater compliment that can be paid, to a parent or to a child or just to a person, that someone is comfortable enough to be quiet in your presence. That's pretty powerful. That someone is comfortable enough to just be quiet with you. Wow. That's huge. That's huge. Mm.
In the beginning, you were talking about being of service to people, but battling your own ego because you're invested, I guess, in the outcome?
Yeah.
And so I was faced with it yesterday. I keep being faced with it. I'm in an odd situation where my work is very, very slow. And it's very frequently just me and a coworker. And he's struggling tremendously with issues. And I'm trying to be of helpful service and suggestion and talk, but I may not be that, I might not have the answers. And it's hard because you're like struggling. You're like, okay, I can't do it for this person, but they need to realize that stuff needs to be done. And
Yeah.
it's hard.
It is hard. And here's a question to ponder. Do they not realize that stuff needs to be done? Or do they just realize it differently than you do? My husband and I had a conversation about, I don't know, a couple of years ago, that I really wish we would have had many years ago. In our relationship, Ed was the idea guy, and I was the one who did. So he would have a great idea, or what he thought was a great idea, and because I'm a doer, I would assume that meant that he wanted that done, and I would go do it. Now, there's nothing wrong with that until you're trying to do the great ideas of one person and do your own great ideas. I think it's a little heavy, You're like, stop with the ideas. And there were times where it was a point of contention, because he'd be like, don't you think it would be great if this was like this? And I'd be like, okay, go change the room around, And finally, like 24 years later, he goes, stop. I said, stop what? He said, just because I'm sharing an idea with you doesn't mean I want you to do it. And I looked at him and I said, what are you talking about? And he said, I just want to share the idea with you. I'm not asking you to do it. I just want to share the idea with you. But you're of such a mentality of do, that the moment I say, wouldn't it be nice if the bookcase were on that side of the room? You think that I'm saying, put the bookcase on that side of the room. And I'm not. I'm just asking for your reflection. Wow. And I just looked at him. And I said, 24 years passed before you could put this in front of me. And it became a comical point between the two of us. But people see things differently. They recognize things differently. They know things differently. And sometimes, and like with my kids too, they see the way things can be done from their perspective. And I see the way things should be done from my perspective. And I'm mom, so of course I'm right. But they still do things from their perspective. And I guess that the greatest quality that we can bring forth as a parent, as a friend, as a leader, as an employer, as a manager, as a supervisor, is to recognize that the greatest way to empower someone else is to share our vision with them and then let them go. They know it has to be done. They'll do it in their own way. And if they're really, really out of bounds, if they're really far out of bounds, then rein them back in a little bit. Have you thought about doing it this way? Have you thought about what happens if you do it that way? Because maybe they've got a great idea you haven't thought of yet. But to be able to have that kind of relationship with someone where there's a lot of allowance for ebbing and flowing of not boundaries, but expectations, requires inner silence. And within that silence, we get to recognize that other people have great ideas too, great thoughts too, creativity too, imagination too, inspiration too. And that our inspiration and our idea about the way it should be is not the only way. I'll close with the words of Ram Dass. I think everybody's had an opportunity to say. Laura, do you want to say? You good? Okay. Ram Dass said, there's one top to the mountain. There's 1,000 ways to get there. Rumi said, there are 10,000 ways to kneel and kiss the earth. We're typically only thinking of one. Can we hold enough silence within ourselves to expand our perception so that we can see more of the picture? More of the picture. So let's sit nice and tall. Close the eyes. May we all see, hear, feel, taste, touch, understand, know, be, with more silence, with more expansiveness, with more love and joy, and more freedom, with more awareness of the God, the Goddess, the One, the Source, and with a greater unity between us, amongst us. Placing the right hand on the heart and left hand over the right. Together we'll lift our voices in one Om. Take a nice breath in. Om. Bowing the head to the heart, acknowledging all that is. And draw the face back to center. So much love, so much peace, so much joy, so much to each and every one of you. So much gratitude. Enjoy your day. Have some lunch. It looks and smells amazing. For our retreat attendees, please make sure to clean up your spaces. Make sure that you have all your personal belongings. Take it easy as you go back out into the world. Don't feel like you got to go back into high gear. Stay a little quiet today. Stay a little quiet. Pick and choose your conversations. Practice conscious listening. Practice stillness. And look for the dates for the full Vipassana. We will be having one.
Are you going to do another, like an extended mini before we do the full?
I'm not sure.
Okay.
We're trying to work out the dates. Yeah, we're trying to work out the dates for that. Yes.
When it's longer, will there be like a few days in there possibly where there's no stimuli coming from the outside?
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
We could call this an introduction. Yeah. Wonderful. Thank you so much, everybody. Many blessings.